everyone. My name is Micah Sims. I'm a freelance cinematographer, and I'm excited to be on the Make It podcast. Probably one of the biggest projects I've shot is a movie called Another Version of You, which you can see on Amazon Prime. And I'm currently shooting several different small documentaries and a lot of commercial projects. So I'm excited. I love commercials. I love that you have just a brief amount of time to make something really cool, and you probably got 5 to 10 shots, and so you get an opportunity to make some really cool stuff there. So, yeah.
Micah Sims, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Man, I'm excited to have you. We've been talking about this for 2 years, maybe.
I think so.
On and off. I've been a real big flake, and but not intentionally. I find that my flakiness is unintentional, which for some people doesn't change that it's anything. It's like it's still frustrating, and then for other people, it's quite endearing. It's like, oh, you really meant to, intention. It's there. But I, by the way, I love the point you made about the difference just right off the bat between sort of shooting commercial versus shooting film. And I think we'll get into some of that in this conversation. Before I get too deep into sort of the directionality of the conversation and some of the things we want to accomplish for the audience, let me just give people just a slight bio, and you can tell me if it's crazy or wrong or needs to be updated. Okay. It is the internet after all. And then we'll hop in just to give them a deeper sense of who you are. Micah is a freelance photographer, cinematographer, and editor, and has a portfolio that spans commercial, music, and independent film work. Micah is based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and of course is a friend of the Make It podcast, having shot the aforementioned Another Version of You, Skakifus, which was a 48-hour film, award-winning film, and the most recent short film we've done together, We Need to Talk About Balloons, which I think I haven't even talked about in public yet. Among many others, he has 2 Best Cinematography Awards and has worked primarily with director Motke Dapp in his independent film work. How was that, Micah? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's super fair. Yeah, very accurate.
Little bio. Yeah, it's cool. And we'll talk about Maki as well a little bit, of course. The first thing is that you're kind of you're not necessarily a recluse. I wouldn't call you that, but you are quiet, you are humble, and therefore a lot of people that have worked with you, which is quite a bit, and quite a few people, don't know a whole lot about you. And are I've heard through the grapevine over the last 3 weeks since this has been scheduled that they're really excited to hear what you're going to say in this interview.
So it's like, a little bit more. That's funny.
Yeah. So just to get you to know you a little bit more and see like what's going on sort of in your mind. And I thought for the audience that isn't aware of your work and isn't and our fans all over the world, Sierra Leone, shout out to you. Our folks in Australia, South Africa, UK, thank you for holding us down like you do, Germany, etc. They're going to want to know more about the nuts and bolts of cinematography and what makes something good and bad, etc. And toolkits. And so I do want to get into that today. So we'll hop around a little bit. I want a little bit of origin story, and I want to combine it with a bit more of the technical as well, and see where it goes. If you don't like it, we can shift and move as you want. But I want to start with, I say all that to get to this question, because it will seem sort of ridiculously simple, but I think it's a good starting place just for the entire audience, meaning the novice to the expert, the most experienced cinematographer in our audience. What is the job of a cinematographer?
That is a good question. I think for me, I think the job of a cinematographer is to bring the director's vision visually to the screen. And I really see the role as like a serving the director kind of position. I think there's obviously lots of cinematographers who have very distinct styles, and I'm sure are hired a lot because of that specific style or their specific ability to add to that. And I 100% agree with that. But I think job number one is, bring that director's vision to the screen in the best way possible.
I love that answer because it's not a technical answer. It's a service answer, and then it's also a taste answer. It's this idea of, you know, every storyteller needs sort of their wingman or wingwoman, if you will,
Yeah, yeah.
and your job is to like keep them from stepping in it, right? Give them a second set of eyes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's all kinds of different types of directors, different directors that have different strengths and weaknesses. And so I think that the cinematographer kind of can help. They can help add to those strengths, and then they can help kind of cover some of those weaknesses. So it definitely is a wingman, a partner. Filmmaking and making anything in general is very much a team game. There's so many people that add to what you end up seeing, and I think that's one of my favorite things about it is I love being on a team, and I love working together, and that multiple people and their ideas coming together to make something. And so I think like the director DP relationship is like at the head of that, and I think that's it's a lot of fun. And once you find a director that you really get and who gets you, and it becomes so much easier to make the stuff that you both want to make, and there's a shorthand and ease and comfort that you're making something cool. And I don't know, that relationship and that part of a team is really cool.
I agree with you, and I think that the third head on that dragon is a producer. You know,
Absolutely.
if you can have a producer, director, cinematographer team that work together all the time, this is kind of what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
then
absolutely.
then that shorthand you talk about is there, and you don't have to be concerned with the professional benchmarking anymore. Now
Yeah,
you can just focus on story. I
yeah.
alluded a moment ago to sort of the mystery of Micah Sims, and part of the legend of you is that you were unusually good at an unusually young age, right? So to the point
That's
when
very
I first, yeah, when I first met you, your nickname was the Wonderkin, and that's what people were telling. Oh, that's the Wonderkin. And I'm like, okay, what's that about? And then I found out what it's about, because you do create, beautiful, beautiful shots and images. It's
thank
it's
you.
it's unbelievable, and you were doing it so young. The thing about being a child prodigy, by the way, is people catch up with you when you're 30. So it's amazing when you're young, and then when you're 30, it's like everybody's caught up with you. They had the time.
Yeah,
So, but I just mentioned that to say, to sort of get you thinking about origin story here.
yeah,
You have an Uncle Jim. Is that right?
yeah. Uncle Jim,
Uncle
that's right.
Jim's a photographer. Did he inspire you to do photography to get into this, or was
Absolutely.
the inspiration someone else in your family or
No,
someone else
um,
around you?
no, definitely Uncle Jim. We grew up. I have a cousin who's basically the same age. His Uncle Jim's son,
Mhm.
and so we were best friends, and our families did a lot together. And so the first camera that I really got to use was his camera. We would go on like camping trips, and I would borrow his camera and take pictures of flowers and people and stuff. So yeah, so that's definitely a big part of that. And then even more importantly is when I was 17, for my birthday, Uncle Jim bought and my Aunt Julie bought me a ticket to a film camp at a place
Okay.
up here in Cincinnati called the Underground. And so
Mhm.
like yeah, so they bought it was a week long film camp. They bought the ticket for me, and that camp is what like that inspired my love for cinematography, for video. Like I just went to that camp and I fell in love with it.
What do they
Um,
do differently there? Do you think? Like,
I
what do you
think
feel?
I didn't have a lot of exposure to like how stuff was made
Mhm.
before that. We would make videos But it was just like I was really into skiing, and so we would make these ski videos, and then the summer we'd make jumping into the pool videos and just like stuff like that. And we would make stuff, but it wasn't. I didn't understand like what all went into it. I was just shooting stuff and
Right.
editing. So yeah, so we went to that. I went to that camp, and my cousin went with me too. And man, it was like a whole world was opened up. So it was like as soon as the camp was over, there was a TV show that was a part of that camp, and I started interning at the TV show. I pooled my money together and bought a DVX 100B. If you remember mini DV stuff,
Yeah.
and I started filming all the time. And any way I could make money, I
Wait, what was
tried.
the camera? What was the camera called?
There's
DVX one.
Panasonic DVX 100B.
Okay.
So that was a pretty good camera. Like
Yeah.
I think it was like $2,300.
Okay.
Which for a
Wow.
17-year-old
That's a
was
huge
pretty
amount of money.
tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on your IG page, Micah, it says that, let me just get this right. You title yourself as photographer for fun
Yeah.
and cinematographer for work, but you majored in what I majored in. Of course, you went to the University of Cincinnati. I majored in marketing. Well, I double majored journalism and marketing, but you majored in marketing. How do you get from marketing to film work? I mean, I know you did you do underground before you went to college, right?
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
loved it the whole way. Why did you choose marketing?
Yeah.
Was it a safety net of some sort?
I always loved. I mean, and to be fair, never graduated. I dropped out
Okay.
after it, so I didn't get quite to where you were. But I always loved commercials, and so to me, it was like, oh, if I can learn more about marketing, it will help, how I shoot or make commercials.
Hmm.
And early on, like, and a lot of my thinking was I was already doing what I wanted to be doing, which was, shooting videos, and I had a little business that I started where I shot events mostly. I mean, I shot anything I could, but it ended up being
Yeah.
a lot of events. And I wanted to be an editor when I started, so I was editing those, and I do think that kind of starting point was actually super helpful for seeing what worked and what didn't. I got to I would shoot stuff and then I would edit it, and then I could see, oh, this worked, this didn't, or these shots cut together better, or
Right.
um, whatever. Which I think now I don't enjoy editing nearly as much, but I do appreciate that. I think if you know how to edit, it does help you be a better cinematographer. So
And so
yeah,
your thought process was just you love commercials, and so you're
yeah,
going to market. Was that
yeah,
the thought?
yeah. I loved commercials, and I mean, I early on, you don't know exactly what you want to do, so
Sure.
I was hoping that maybe I could get a job at an agency or something, um, but that didn't last very long because I only
How
went
did
for
you
3.
survive University of Cincinnati, by the way? So I have one of my children went to Xavier, so I was around that
Yeah,
campus a lot. It was crazy on that campus as compared to
yeah.
at least Xavier. Um,
Yeah, well, I went to a branch campus,
okay.
and then I went to a small school called Temple Baptist, and
Yes.
I played college basketball there for 1 year.
Oh
But that
man.
all that stuff was like we're just kind of you're just kind of like taking the next step in front of you, but none of it was like I loved video stuff. So I think about that time, my buddy Ryan, there was a bunch of changes at the place where I went to the film camp, and he became
Underground.
the
Yeah.
director there. Yeah, and so I started taking photos at some of the concerts because it was a concert venue and they had a TV show that they based out of there, and so the TV show kind of folded, and Ryan became the creative director there. And so I started taking photos, and Ryan had worked on X-Men 2 as a producer's assistant and had gone to film school, and he just loved film. And so I think he's a big reason why I got inspired. Like his love for it inspired me to love it as well. And so I got an internship there, and then I got a job there, and we made all kinds of content. We would make stuff, highlight videos for the bands. We had a huge battle of the bands, and so we would do promos for that. We did some music videos. We would do live music videos. We start started like there's an educational piece where high schoolers would come in, and we would teach them stuff, and then they would operate cameras and do the in-house live show, and stuff like that. So I got to educate a little bit, but yeah,
Right.
Ryan was awesome, and
Well,
he pushed
go
us.
into that a little bit. I presume we're talking about Ryan Hartsock,
Ryan Hartsock, yeah.
former uh, guest, two-time guest on this podcast.
Two-time guest. Yeah,
He did, yeah. We did an interview with him years ago, and he did a mistake in the making that was
nice.
probably still to this day. So, mistakes in the making is a series we do. If you guys don't know, you
Yeah,
can check that out on Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. And he did one of the most original mistakes in the makings we still have to this day, where for 5 minutes you just have no idea how he's going to tie this into filmmaking, and then he does it beautifully at the end. So shout out to Ryan. What can you go into what he did as a mentor that helped you develop your sense of taste and your eye for what a good shot is and what a good shot isn't, and what's working and what's not?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think first and foremost, he loved film, and I think he had a high standard. And then, once, and then he gave us a lot of autonomy to try stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
we, in that job, we had opportunities to, like, if something wasn't working, we could redo it. There wasn't a like, it wasn't like a, you have one shot at it. So, yeah, so I feel like he gave us a lot of freedom. He'd be like, hey, this is kind of what we want to do. And then we had a lot of freedom to go out and make it. And we had a great team of people there. I had started a production company a while back with a buddy named Steven Sargent, and he was there. A guy named Kyle Eversall, and these guys were very good at their jobs, and they had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of passion too. And so, like, the team of us got to do a lot of fun stuff together, and I think we pushed each other to grow and learn, and it was super collaborative, and I think that was, for me, was something that was super fun, because earlier on it was just me, you know, and so getting to share brain space with 3 or 4 other people in making stuff was a lot of fun. And I will say I knew pretty much nothing about lighting then, so I think some of the stuff I'll watch back and I'll be like, wow, we lucked into some good stuff here.
Yeah, and sometimes you do have to get lucky, but I think the thing that sticks out to me, Micah, is this idea of he held you to a high standard.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it reminds me of the doc series, The Last Dance, Michael
Hmm.
Jordan doc series, where the whole thing is 10 episodes of people having to deal with Michael Jordan's standard of excellence
Yeah,
and all the varying machinations of that, whether they be stressing you out, whether they be physical fights, altercations, arguments, um, things like this. But at the end of it, everybody was better.
yeah,
Everybody was better because for having been around
yeah,
someone who is so demanding. And I do think, from my viewpoint, just as an entrepreneur and as a founder and
yeah,
producer, I think you have to decide: are you going to try to make everybody love you, or are you going to have an actual principle, philosophy, point of view that is going to put you in a position where some people just aren't going to love love you, but will work hard for you, right?
yeah,
And I had to come to that realization because I'm a person who grew up kind of like with wanting people to love me, wanting people to like me no matter what. Already feeling, in this community in the South where it was like, okay, I'm a biracial kid, not, not exactly fitting in everywhere. Where do I go? Where do I fit in? My siblings sort of had the same thing, at least one of them for sure. Um, and you have to overcome that, or you can't get to this place you want to get to, this professional benchmark we talk about. It's this idea of if you do stuff for everybody and everybody likes it, then you've done something for no one, and it's not differentiated, and it's
mhm,
not going to be great because
yeah,
you've given everybody permission to say good job, good job, we like you, instead of dealing with you professionally and critiquing you hard.
Yeah.
because you give it back to them hard, right? If you do that, then they'll critique you hard and make you better. So I think that really stands out in terms of what you said about Ryan. I do just want to ask one more question about that,
Yeah.
just for the audience's sake. What does it mean to hold you to a high standard as a cinematographer? Like, what would Ryan specifically, like, not accept?
I think I don't know that it was like there was like, oh, he's not going to accept this. I think it was like the expectation was already there that we were going to do the best work that we could do in that,
I see.
and I think that there was a lot of space and time for if it wasn't good enough, we could go back and do it again or put pieces of it again or um, yeah. And I mean, you've been around Ryan. He's just
Yeah.
like, I have so much respect for him. And I would say he's one of my best friends and a person that I enjoy hanging out with because of his personality, like similar to like a Michael Jordan that is going to push people to do to be the best that they can be. And I think that I've, I feel like I've probably picked up a lot of that as well in kind of what my expectations are for some of the people that we work with or friends or in other areas of your life too. Like you can really, I don't know, I think you should be striving to be a better person and to be a better version of yourself. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I totally agree with that last piece for sure. Like this idea of just like how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday
Yeah.
to those around me, and we don't always get there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but
It's
if you're
that
thinking,
journey.
if yeah, you think about it though, like, and it could be, you're so right. It could be anything. It could be, was I a good father today? Was I a
Hmm.
good husband today? Did I go work out today? You told yourself you're going to go work out today. You didn't do it. So now you have to, if you don't care, then you don't even think about it. It just isn't
Yeah.
even, it doesn't even cross your mind
Yeah.
to get there, to get to that place. But it does sound like to me, his version of high standard, what allowed for that was the fact you guys were resource rich, and not just in funding, but also in time. The
Hmm.
ability to give the time and have the time it takes to get those reps in to be
Yeah.
great. So that's really important point I want to pull out for this audience. Um, Another frequent collaborator of yours, even though you are in Cincinnati and this person isn't,
Yeah.
is Motke Dapp. So I
Yeah.
want to just quickly get your thoughts on Maki, and what qualities um, does Maki have that makes you want to work with him so much, and what do you look for in a director uh, based on all this time you spent with Maki? What are you looking for as a cinematographer when you meet a director, if it's not going to be Maki?
Yeah. I mean, I love Maki Dapp. He's another one of those guys, similar to Ryan, where it's just like without them, I wouldn't be here. I'm super thankful for that. And when we first met, it was because of Ryan. We were shooting Maki was shooting a 48-hour film in Nashville, and some of his normal crew couldn't make it.
Yeah.
And so there was a mutual friend that Maki and Ryan had, and he was acting in the film. And so he's like, "Hey, I've got some friends that have a bunch of stuff, and they could maybe come do it." And so that's how Ryan came down. I came down, Steven and Kyle, and one more guy, Dan Mark, and we came down from Cincinnati and met Maki at his house like the night before. And he
Wow.
cooked up a crazy idea. We had an awesome location, and we shot a short film and edited everything in 48 hours. And he had a pretty big team around him already, but it was like we kind of came in and did the shooting aspect of it. And it was like Ryan and Maki hit it off, and I did too. And I think it was what the cool thing and the difference in a lot of the stuff that I had done before that is Maki's super prepared. Whenever I shoot with Maki, I love how prepared he is. He's thought through everything. He's got the wardrobe, the colors all dialed in, the actors. Like everything's kind of just dialed in, and that's one thing that I think makes him special. Is he loves it, and so he spends the time that it deserves ahead of time on it. And so
Yeah.
for me, when I'm, working with him or collaborating with him or doing pre-pro or whatever, like he's, a lot of that's already done, and we can just like focus on how to make it cool. How do we make it cooler or more impactful, or bring the audience in this way or that way? And so we can focus on a lot of other details because of how prepared he is. And I think not every director is like that. But that's one thing that I love about Maki.
Yeah, it's super great feedback. I've found that to be true with him as well, especially like there, I think everybody's answer to do you love film if they're in film is yeah, I love film. But
Yeah.
but there are people who show it in their
Yeah.
actions versus just their words. And he can get ramped up on a subject, on a critique of a film or an idea, and uh, to the wrong person, like to the untrained eye, it's like, you know, okay, he's combative about this. I'm like, no, he loves this. What you're witnessing is passion,
Yeah.
and you need to meet him there. And if you can't meet him there, you can't be one of his people. I mean, it's that simple. Speaking of meeting him there, what do you think it is about you that keeps him coming back to you,
Yeah, it's a good
working with
question.
you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's two things. I think one thing that we connect on is like filmmaking, and a lot of the roles in filmmaking
Mhm.
um, they're very artistic. They have a ton of pieces of that, but I definitely view it as more of a craft. And so, like, when you think about it from a craft standpoint, there's work to be put in.
Mhm.
There's you're developing into a craftsman. You're not just letting your artist's self, you know, go places, but you're like actually developing. Similar to sports, similar to woodworking, or like stuff like there's things to develop and there's skills to develop. And I think
Mhm.
Maki has that big time, and I also have that, and so I think that's something that we connect on. Is like we're both like we're developing our craft, and what's been fun is we've gotten to develop our craft together. The stuff that we make now compared to even another version, or Department of Thoughts and Intentions, which was the first one, you can see, us get better together. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's really cool. But I think
Yeah.
that's
I've watched that progression myself. So anyway, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just thinking I think that's one thing that draws us together. And then we when you're good friends with people and you have like a long respect for them, you develop a shorthand, and so it's really easy. Like he can describe what he wants, and almost always the first time what we put together, like the lighting team and I, like that's what he wants. Like it's very rare that we'll switch something up, and he'll add awesome things, or I'll add things, or a producer, you might add something. But it's rare to like, I don't know if we've ever had to like just scratch it and start over,
Yeah.
just because in some sense from that there's just like a shared appreciation for similar things. So
Yeah. I think you have to develop a circle of trust so that when you have an idea, you trust the person's feedback to build upon the idea without changing
yeah,
who you are and what your idea is fundamentally. And I think, he's done a good job of
yeah,
finding those people
yeah,
to do that with. I know that uh, you mentioned this at the very very top of this conversation about sort of your love for commercial work, and
yeah,
that the love comes from the constraint, actually, like this limitation you have on time and shots, and you have to
yeah,
get it all in there. Can you just talk to this audience a little bit about the difference between a commercial shoot and let's have a fair comparison. So instead of a feature, like an
yeah,
independent short film or any kind
yeah.
of short film, how do you approach those differently? A commercial shoot versus short film?
Yeah. I mean, and there's obviously different types of commercials, but for the most part, a commercial, let's say you have 30 seconds, and with an end tag of 4 seconds, you really have 26 seconds. So you have
Mhm.
26 seconds to tell the story that you want to tell. And you have that opportunity that also the shots need to be as cool as possible. because especially now everyone, is just skipping stuff
Mm.
or is muted or whatever. So you have to like, it really, like, how can you like pique their interest in the first 5 seconds, really? But what's fun about that is like you take all that time and you're like, okay, here we are going to make each one of these shots as cool and as impactful as possible. So that's one thing I love about commercials is like, we might have a whole day, maybe sometimes 2 days to make 30-second commercial or 2 30-second commercials.
Yeah.
And so you have so much time to like really craft the image, instead of, at least usually with a film, especially a short film, you have limited time. You're trying to shoot, 6 8 10 12 pages in one day, and what's not always as important is how it looks, but is
Right.
way more important that it's cohesive. And so like you do have time to make it look good, and you do have time to have, like, usually to make it as best you can. But what's way more important is to make it cohesive and like for that narrative to maintain through the whole thing and kind of take your audience on a journey. But the challenge is you have, we might be shooting a 9-minute piece and you have 1 or 2 days or whatever. So you have so much less time to craft that. And I know on, bigger movies, you've got more time, but there's probably more problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, what can you do?
Mm.
No matter where you're at, you're never going to have enough money and you're never going to have enough time. So,
Right. There are always more cats to herd.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So I don't know. I
for
think
sure.
that's kind of the big difference, is that the shots are so much more important in a commercial, and in a film, the narrative is the most important thing. So, um,
It's a
yeah, and
very,
shots
very,
go into that. But
yeah. It's a great summary. I am curious what your favorite project has been. Um, if you had to pick one from both genres, like what's your favorite commercial and what's your
that I've
favorite film you've
shot,
done? Yeah.
yeah,
Which
commercials
ones do
wise,
you look to as like that one I was on another level that when I did that.
yeah, Litter Robot, is a brand that Maki's working with, and um, we make some of the most fun stuff. They're a super fun brand, and I feel like it fits right into Maki's
It,
wheelhouse.
it
And
does.
so, I mean, there's we have big crews on them, and we do a lot of cool stuff. So I'm really proud of how those look, and they're funny. And
Is there one in particular?
um, that's a good question. One that we did that I really like, that we shot in a big studio, and we had an orange set and a teal set,
Yeah.
and there's kind of like, it's like an infomercial, but the two hosts are like kind of combative, and so the way it's edited is that it feels like they're trying to like steal time from each other.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite ones, partly because it was, you go in a studio and it's a blank set, and so the production designer, our department, did an amazing job, and the Genie team, and it was just a lot of fun. And so I love how it's written. It's back and forth. What's really cool is Motke and another guy at Little Robot, Sunny. They built this really cool style, and other companies, other brands are kind of starting to copy it. And so that's kind of fun to see. Is like, oh,
Oh
like,
no.
hey,
I mean, it's
I can,
good. It's
uh,
good, but then it's also like, oh no.
but
Um,
we just keep pushing and growing and trying things. And it's like similar to what Old Spice, did. Is like they came on and did, something very different, and then,
yeah.
lots of people copied them, and there's pieces of Old Spice in what we're doing, and
Yeah.
it's fun to like learn from those different things, and try some stuff, and make something that's very like, has a very specific brand. So that's been a lot of fun.
What went into getting the shot in another version of you? I think in Iceland, where the the brother and sister Dixie character are they're talking, they're having a conversation. I think on a what looks to be an old airplane, or
Yeah.
I think or somewhere near that. maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's a rock,
Yeah.
or but anyway, it's a giant shot. It's a beautiful shot. What went into getting that that shot? And maybe we'll on the video side have uh, editor Kate
Yeah.
cut that shot in so people can get a sense of the beauty of it. But
Yeah.
um, what went into getting that shot?
I think you're talking about two different shots. There is a shot where
I definitely am.
Digsy's on the airplane and he's kind of exploring by himself, and then there's later on Digsy and Daphne are on the
Disney and
beach.
Daphne are on the
Yeah.
yeah, but they're on a rock on the beach, and
Yeah.
it's a big
Overlooking the
shot,
ocean.
and then it's tight, and then
Yeah.
it's I think it's wide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Iceland is beautiful anywhere you shoot, and we were there in May and it was pretty rainy.
that's what I
Um,
was gonna say. Is it cloud covered
yeah,
and rainy though? Like,
it was very rainy. But we Maki and Ryan had some good different places that they wanted to go, and we had a local guy there who works in the film industry there, and he was super helpful. So we just kind of went to different locations, and the goal was to make it was kind of like a travel. That piece of it was kind of like a travel film, and so we were trying to show cool places, and show their relationship and what they were going through. So I don't. I mean, I remember. I wish I had had a different perspective when we were there, because it was ended up being it was a lot of work, and I wish I had. There was a part of me that was like, man, this is a lot, and I wish that I had been like able to step back and be like, this in this moment, this is amazing,
no, that's
and
awesome.
um, and so I think like I remember I mean, we drove, and I would fall asleep holding the camera in the car, and then we would get out and we would, shoot at some beautiful place, and we get back in the car and drive, and I'd fall asleep, and because there's like 20 hours of light there,
Right.
and then we were
Wow.
dumping footage overnight and stuff, so it was a lot, but I think like we just wanted to, we had a great overlook there, and you want to show the beauty of the place, and Maki and Ryan really did a great job of getting us to those locations, and Maki and putting those scenes and scenarios together. So for
Is
me, it
there
was pretty.
anything you do though with lighting or with the camera to sort of deal with the fact that your subjects at times are so far away or seem so far away from the lens, or do you just rely on post to make it look,
I mean,
the way
no,
it should look?
we wanted to show the expanse of where they're at. So I think it's probably a 24 mil,
Okay.
and we just backed up. Although we were at, it would have been a 25. So we're on some Zeiss EEs. My lenses have
Okay.
evolved, but
Those were the
yeah,
lenses. Because we need to talk about kits. We need
yeah.
to get into that here at the very near future. Because I want to let's pin that Zeiss lens talk,
Okay,
because we're gonna actually circle back around
yeah,
to that, and because that's kind of what I want to touch on is, it's lens choice, it's where you set the camera, how do you get the expanse. I think some of
yeah,
those things are the difference between good and great,
yeah.
sometimes, and then the input you take from the director as you and producer as you alluded to earlier. Um, is that your favorite genre to shoot though? Is kind of like sort of dramedy, comedy, sort of fun stuff, or is there a genre you haven't shot that you're looking forward to shooting? Like what's your favorite to do, or one you desire to do
Yeah.
next?
I mean, I love comedy, but not just straight comedy. Like I think um like I really enjoy Guy Ritchie films. I think that
Are you watching The Gentleman right now?
I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to. I'm excited
Yeah,
to.
he does.
But he does.
Whether you like the storyline or not, or like are into it, you have to admire like the chances he takes and like the style he brings, um, to everything he does. And
Yeah.
it's, to your point, it's kind of like he's an auteur. It's 100% him. Like you start watching, you're like, oh, this is Guy
Yeah,
Ritchie. Like you know it
yeah,
right away in the
yeah,
dialogue, in the way it's shot, some of the stuff in post he does.
yeah.
I think the way he wants his characters to live in the world is
Hmm.
it really stands out as well. Like they have
Yeah,
a specific type of like dignity, even when they're dignity, even when they're criminals, the kind
yeah,
of thing, which is cool. So definitely check it out on Netflix, The Gentleman. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah. No,
Um,
I like
you were
how
talking about you love Guy Ritchie.
he just blends comedy, action, drama, and he just ends up making a fun movie. And like
Yes.
for the most part, I don't know, especially since 2020, I'm way more interested in watching fun movies than like sad or depressing movies. I don't know. I don't know if I got so depressed during 2020 that it was like, I don't want my movies to feel like where we're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. I'm drawn to stuff like that. Like I really enjoy Edgar Wright, and I think that's another reason Maki loves Edgar Wright, and
Yeah.
that
Another
and
guy where it's like, right away.
yeah,
With these directors, and I would say Maki fits into this and you fit into this. It's
yeah,
this idea of, okay, this isn't how the world is, but it's how the world would be if I ran it.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
kind of love that because you either
yeah,
hate it or you love it, but
yeah,
you don't get to sit on the sidelines. And
yeah.
that's what I like. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I just like there's just they have fun styles that they bring, so it's not just like it's not just like it doesn't feel like it's a exact world that we live in. It's a new world, and I enjoy that. And I
Yeah.
like I love Denis Villeneuve and I love Spielberg and I love those types of movies too. But I think in terms of like if you're drawn to shooting something specifically, something more like Edgar Wright or Guy Ritchie is probably more what
I
I would
love
be
those
drawn.
too. And I love, this is, I don't think it's controversial, but I love Aronofsky. I think
Mm-hmm.
he does a lot of world building too, but on the other end of that spectrum,
Yeah.
where there's something about the tragic nature of human life that he
Mm-hmm.
focuses on. Um, and you're right, you're not always in the mood to watch it. It's not like you go and watch Requiem for a Dream twice. Like, like that's a movie you just need one time. You don't need to
Yeah.
obsess about it. And I'm sure some people do obsess about it and watch it over and over. Maybe Selby fans, whatever. But it's not one of those things. I think Black Swan is like that. The Wrestler is its own unique version of heartbreaking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've
I need to
never
see.
seen
I've
such a
seen that.
polarized reaction to the movie Mother. There's such a polar reaction to that movie. Like I've never
Yeah.
seen anything like it. So yeah, which one have you not seen? You said,
I need to. I haven't seen many Aronofsky's films, but I would like to see The Wrestler.
yeah, you shouldn't because it's just going to make you sad, Micah.
Yeah. Well, I can
We can't have sad Micah.
say I'm not sad super often. So.
Yeah, we got to keep you floating on high here. But yeah, the wrestler's just good. Like all the way, like everything about it's good. Rachel Evan Wood is she's a special talent.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So let's go back to the pin we put in the other
Yeah.
question. You use Alexa Mini LF. You
Yeah.
used Ari before. Let's.
I mean, it's
I'm
like
thinking
kind of
about
with that.
like what's that?
Like with that, like I think with cinematographers, there's a whole spectrum of how like are they technical to artistic, and it's not like it's like a perfect scale, but like some cinematographers don't care about the gear, and some are just all about the gear.
Yeah, this
And
is
so
true. This is what I want to get into because we live in this
yeah,
sort of no film school newsletter world sometimes
yeah,
where they're selling you something new every month. You just
mhm,
got the red dragon and now they're going to come out with the red, whatever the next thing is with
yeah,
all
yeah,
these supplemental components you need to get just to make the damn camera work.
yeah,
And you can get caught up in it. You become sort of a minion in a way to sort of the market surge and then of products in film. And then at the same time, every once in a while there is a breakthrough with a
Yeah.
camera or with a particular price or with a capability where
Yeah.
everybody sort of floods the market to or runs to the market to go get those things. But for
Yeah.
people who are just getting started and people who aren't in this world, they don't know. It's very difficult to tell the difference between hype and what's real. So
Yeah.
I guess if you could create a cinematographer starter kit, what would
Yeah.
be in it? Like what brands and models would be in your
Yeah.
cinematographer starter kit? So I want to be a cinematographer now, and you're going to help me get started.
You
What do
have
I
some
go
money.
out? I got money. What do I go out and buy? Yeah.
Man, I think it's a fun time to be a cinematographer because cameras, basically all the cameras out there are so good. I think I if you want a camera and you don't want to pay $1 billion like the big camera cost, I hands down the camera would be the Sony FX, and they just shot the creator on the Sony FX3. If you saw that,
Yeah, I watched that. I watched the YouTube video on that, and they used the FX9 a little bit too, but a
yeah,
lot of
they
it they
used it
used the
for
3.
yeah the nine they used because they needed Genlock sync to shoot with a video wall.
Okay, explain
Because
that
the camera.
to the people. What did you just say there?
Um, I mean, I haven't shot on a video wall to be fair, but
Mhm.
video walls have a refresh rate, and you can sync that with the camera, so then you won't see
So
it.
you won't
So
see the
the
refresh
shutter will
rate.
be at the same rate as the refresh rate, so you won't see any of that. So that's why they use the FX9 because the FX3 doesn't have a Genlock port,
Got
but
it.
everything else was, and what's it's just like if there's like I'm shooting this little podcast on my FX3. I've got it stacked up here on my computer.
You look
Um,
great.
thanks.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a small camera, but it looks like I have an Alexa Mini LF, and they're both full frame, and I can match them so easily in 98% of all scenarios. And then, if
Okay.
you go nitpicking color, specifically skin tone, the Alexa is better,
Mhm.
but you could buy, 25 FX3s for one Mini LF or something like that. I know it's
Wow.
probably, but they're just it's just a great camera. And it's one thing I've also noticed is if you're shooting more docu style, or I shoot a lot for nonprofits, is like a big camera and an easy rig and all this stuff. It kind of is off putting to people,
Hmm.
and so they react differently to you being there. But a small camera, people are so used to phones and people just taking pictures all the time. It looks much more like that, and so you actually can get better footage oftentimes because your ability to be close and to get a more genuine reaction from people is far more important than the small difference in quality from a big camera to a small camera. So
Oh, that's great
if you're
feedback.
if you're yeah if you want to make films or shoot pretty much anything and you have a little bit of money, I would buy the FX3.
What do they cost approximately? I mean, I know it's going to be difference in $50 here
Yeah,
or there, but in general, what are we
yeah.
talking
I
about?
think the body is like $3,900, and it's been out for a little bit now, so you might even be able to get it for less than that. And that includes a top handle with like XLR inputs and stuff, which is pretty great. So you still need media, maybe some extra batteries and a lens. But for $3,900, like you can get something that a huge $80 million movie just shot on,
I
and
know. I think that's so insane too. So
yeah,
if you haven't seen The Creator, it's pretty good. I liked
yeah.
it. I'm a big fan of
Visually,
John
it's
David
awesome.
Washington. Yeah, visually, there's just it's otherworldly. But to your point, they shot that on this $4,000, $5,000 camera all in,
Yeah,
maybe 6,000 all in, and they shot this giant movie on it. So
yeah.
um, yeah, I think I know what camp you're in, in terms of like, is it like should we get all technical here, or is it more about what I mean? So like the camera's the
Yeah.
camera, what you do with it is totally different. It's almost like, not to make another basketball reference, but we're going to. Uh, it's like we look at these old videos of like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird playing in like Converse All Stars where there's like
Mm-hmm.
no support on the ankle and they're like literally made of canvas, some of them. And then, or Dr.
Yeah.
J, like from back in the day, like, how did they play in those shoes? Well, it's
Yeah.
what they were doing. It really isn't the shoes. Sorry, Mars Blackman, but it really isn't the shoes. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Describe your go-to lighting setup. So again, to this audience, they're starting to be a cinematographer. They went out and bought the Sony you told them to buy. They've got the media. They got the lenses. Can you talk a little bit to like your lighting setup, and then maybe what lens you would get for that FX3?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot of schools of thought, but if you had one light, most of the time, unless it's a big thing, I'm just lighting with one light and like using whatever, if we're on a daytime interior, using some windows or something to help out. And then the bigger the crew, like I work on all different size things. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's me and 50 people.
Okay.
So it's like, you have to, a lot of the same techniques are there. It's just like, how much can you do? But I love soft light, and so if you can, and you have one light, I would just buy a Fresnel with a softbox, and
Mm-hmm.
then put that like right here. The camera's here. You put that here or
Mm-hmm.
here, and give them some shape from one direction, but not too much. And you can shoot most of your stuff with something simple like that.
And for those
Um,
just listening to the podcast and not seeing this on YouTube, Micah sort of put his hand right over his face as the camera, and then the light is sort of to the left or right of that camera,
yeah, like a two
high and
thirds.
above, like 2/3. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, like for most, like if you're shooting an interview or something like that, like I mean, let's be honest, like I shoot tons of interviews. That's that's a great way to light. And another thing is and the bigger the source, the softer the source. And
Mm-hmm.
so the closer you can get that source to something, it makes it bigger, and that's going to be softer light. So um, I think like if I have several 5 foot soft boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a pretty big soft box, and you can get that pretty dang close to somebody. But even like if you have a 3 foot soft box, you can just get that close, dim it down so it's not too bright, and you can get that in a nice spot. If you have to shoot a wide shot, obviously the bigger the source, the better that's going to be for in terms of soft light. Or also like using hard light and letting it bounce in and hit the floor and light the room more. That's also something I do a lot of. And um,
Mm.
my whole goal with lighting is to make it look like it was naturally lit by the sun. Um, and that it's
Okay.
not. Obviously, there's times where we're doing more stylized stuff, but like in terms of a narrative especially, I want it to just feel like there's no lights there. It's just like the windows and the practical bulbs and stuff that you see there have lit the space. So
It's almost
um,
like the how we view technology. Like the best technology is the technology you don't notice.
yeah, yeah,
It's if you notice the cinematographer in a narrative story that's just supposed to have natural light, that's kind of a fail.
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
want it to just look like you're there with the characters.
yeah.
I think is really smart way to
And
look
it's
at it.
it's hard to do too. Like it's that, especially the wider the shots go, the harder it is. But I think that's my goal, is to make it feel like it's not lit. I know Roger Deakins is one of my favorite cinematographers, and he shot. This is where I'm going to need help. The 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 movie with the guy in prison. They shot up in Ohio, and he escapes.
Oh, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he shot Shawshank Redemption. That was one of the movies that he shot relatively early in coming over here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that don't quote me on that, but relatively early. Like he'd been here for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and he was at the ASC clubhouse, and someone said something about, oh well, that wasn't a hard movie to shoot because it's all natural light, and he laughs about it because it's like almost no natural light because of the way that the prison wall, like the cells are set up, like it's in like deep shadow almost always, and so he
Yeah.
had all these huge lights. I think they had to like source like everything in the Midwest to get the lights, and it
Yeah.
looks like this, like just natural light, and that's one movie that I think is super impressive, and I think he enjoys that. that at that moment, another ASC cinematographer was like, oh, it's just natural light. And that's kind of like, that's like the
That's
holy
crazy.
grail.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
do
that
that?
it's crazy that comment came from a cinematographer too. Like
Yeah.
just to lay yourself out there with naked ignorance,
Well, I don't know who it was.
with a comment that at best is pseudo intellectual and at worst
Yeah.
is a hallucination of craft. I
Yeah.
think I think that's really
Another thing
interesting.
that's kind of along those lines, like, is like, I think one thing that's really impressive is how many amazing cinematographers there are. Like, obviously, you think of the movies that are coming out all visually look awesome, like
Yeah.
the way that people are doing it. But then you go down a step, commercials
Mhm.
across the board, it's hard to find a bad looking commercial. And then
Yeah.
you go, even down below that, and there's so many people that are doing really great work. And I think that's really cool. It's a little challenging because you're like, oh, well, how do I differentiate myself? But like, it's also really cool that there's a lot of people that have really fallen in love with this and really are making some awesome stuff. So
Well, I wanted to touch on that. It's I, I had it down here just to talk about that because I want to know. I think it's true, so I'll just start with that.
yeah.
But how is the definition of the role of cinematographer changing um, with this emergence of not just AI, but also post tools? There are so many post tools, and um, I'm lucky to have some editors in my life close to me. Like I get to talk to them and geek out on this stuff,
Yeah.
and the amount of things you can do once you get the image into your software is
Hmm.
remarkable. And so sometimes I wonder, is what me and you were seeing in terms of the quality of the shot and the commercial, the movie, is that the craft of the masters like Roger Deakins, or is that the craft of great post and great editors and even more to the point I'm trying to make, great software?
Yeah.
How is it changing the definition of your role in your career?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would know the ins and outs of every piece of this, but I know that there's guys like, I don't think Deacons is shooting very close to what you're seeing in the theater.
Okay.
They have a colorist. They're touching stuff up and making stuff better, but I don't. It's not like a full AI relight or something. But I have seen
Right.
software that you can completely relight an entire scene with AI. What AI tools? It still needs someone doing it. You can't just like type it in and tell it. But
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like making hard light slashes and like brightening up things, and camera quality is so high, and it's continuing to grow where all that information will be there, and AI tools are just going to do that. So that aspect of things is, I love AI tools. I don't love like the idea of generative AI, and I don't feel super qualified to talk too much about it, but like it's definitely a concern, especially since it's learning. All it's doing is learning from human created stuff, basically plagiarizing it
Hmm.
and making it. And there's an Under Armour commercial that I don't know if you've seen, that was basically made with AI, big
I
time
haven't seen
commercial
it.
director. And there's like a Instagram post, and it's like all the big of the big are commenting on it and talking about it. It's been really interesting to see like different people's takes on like it, but it's pretty concerning because they trained AI on other Under Armour commercials shot by other people, and then used some of that footage to like make a whole new commercial, and it kind
Well,
of makes
well,
sense, but it
well,
also
it
is like,
is. And yeah, it's interesting and concerning, right? Like I have two thoughts on that. So one is, our lawyer has talked to us about this a lot, about sort of like the IP uh, cases that can be won or lost and why,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just guiding us, giving us counsel. And one of the things he always refers back to is a case that was put in court against EA Sports, And EA Sports, if for those who don't know, they make sports games for gaming systems. Some of the most popular ones are like Madden and NBA 2K and things like that. And this NBA player had a tattoo uh, on his arm. A lot of NBA players have tattoos, and those tattoos ended up in the game. And the tattoo artist sued and won
Wow.
because the game is making money off, I guess, a derivative version of his original art. So if that can be won, to me, it's impossible. There's art like for AI to win out on this because and those
Yeah.
tech companies that are making it, because the courts have already set a precedent in
Yeah.
intellectual property cases where it's like, as long as you can prove that the AI was being trained,
Yeah.
and by the way, they're totally transparent about this. They're like, we trained it on other Under Armour
Yeah.
stuff, and so if Under Armour had worked for hire for those cinematographers and for those directors, then they might not have a case,
Right.
those directors, cinematographers. But if they can, if those directors and cinematographers can prove that they use a certain standard of like a certain toolkit every
Yeah.
time, so whether they're shooting for Under Armour or Nike, it looks the same and it's identifiable as their work, then I think they do have a case, because now
Yeah.
this AI has learned how to shoot the way I would shoot and color the way I would color
Yeah.
and do setups the way I would do it. So
Yeah.
it'll be
And
interesting to see.
I know that some production companies and agencies are trying to like rework like those agreements so that some of this stuff can't happen. Because if
Yeah.
it does, eventually there will be that type of work will go away. Because
Yeah.
ultimately it's all about money, and it
Right.
is way cheaper to just type things into a computer. Even if it costs $50,000, that's way cheaper than $1 million, $2 million commercial.
Right. And I'm trying to popularize this phrase prompt maker instead of filmmaker,
Mm.
because
Yeah,
that would be my second thought. My second thought is that this happens it's happened in music, probably most famously, but it's happened in other industries too,
yeah,
where the what technology does is it democratizes something that took a person their entire life to become a master at, right?
hmm,
You could make the case for chess being like that, online chess. You could make the case for music. When someone older says the music just isn't the same today, the first instinct you have is, okay, Clint Eastwood, right? Get off my lawn, kind of thing. Every generation says that, but
yeah,
if on deeper examination, the reason why the music might not feel as warm or as good or soulful or even as craft like is because you no longer need to. I mean, how many people on the radio know how to play any instrument? There are entire genres where there are no musicians in the
mhm,
genre,
yeah,
and that's due to technology, the democratization of a skill set. And
yeah,
so when everybody can be a cinematographer and everybody can produce, an incredible looking Super Bowl ad or BMW commercial or whatever, um, then um, I think you have every right to have some, not just angst, but you can be somewhat bitter because you spent your real life learning how to
yeah,
do the things that this technology is just going to sort of hand over
yeah,
to um, to just everybody that wants to do it.
yeah,
And what would be the differentiator then? It feels like the differentiator is your ability to tell a story, in that, now ads are less, and so ad work might change forever, to your point. And the
yeah,
only way to really stand out is to be a storyteller and tell that sort of
yeah,
narrative story over time that
yeah,
would be very difficult for somebody to do, even if they had the tools.
hmm,
Right? It's kind of like I every person I grew up with could make a beat because of the democratization of music and the digital workstation. They all could make beats for the most part. And if you couldn't make your beat on time, then you were lost anyway. And there were people who, even with the computer, couldn't couldn't put the drums on time. It would be amazing. And then what you found out, and this is a bit of a diatribe now, what you found out was that the difference was, okay, this person has something to say, this person didn't.
Mhm.
This person has nothing rolling around up there in their noggin, and this person has a lot rolling around in their noggin.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe film will be the same. You've been
yeah.
generous with your time, Micah. This has been awesome. Can I hit you with some speed round questions, some rapid fire, if you will?
Sure, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions, but you don't have to answer fast. So I just
Okay.
always want to preface that. But this is just a series of questions. Okay, one, for anyone in film, cinematography, or just needing inspiration, what books do you recommend?
Um, Man, that's a good question. I currently haven't read a whole lot recently. I think I know the magazine American Cinematographer has been super helpful for me.
Okay,
Um, and some of it is pretty deep. So you might not always know all the lighting terms or what units they're talking about or stuff, but it is. I've learned so much from that magazine series, and um, I think it's awesome. They'll even give you breakdowns and stuff. So I think if you love film and you want to learn more, that's the number one thing I would recommend.
love it. Magazine American Cinematographer.
Yeah.
Um, Go out and get it, per Micah Sims. What are the best pieces of advice you've received in your career?
Um, I heard something recently on the Deacons podcast that I think, which I would also recommend, is the
Okay,
Roger Deakins podcast
I'm
on
writing it
Spotify.
down right now.
Yeah, um, that I've learned so much on there. But um, there was a cinematographer was talking, and I'll think of his name here in a little bit. But he was talking about how, I mean, if you've been a cinematographer or if you've worked on set, there's a pressure on you.
Hmm.
The pressure to make the day is intense,
Yeah.
and you have a shot list, and you have this piece, and you have limited time, and so there's this pressure, and there's I mean, I only know how I handle it. I'm sure there's other cinematographers that handle it differently. Whether they're like, you know what, we're just going to go 2 hours late, or we're going to sacrifice here or there, and there's always going to be sacrifices for different things. But the cinematographer, it was Adam Arkapaw, and he
Mm.
said, I I think he had gotten this advice too, and it was tr- do what the best you can to make it special. And I think like with that pressure to make the day, to get all the shots, you're like I know for sure that we have to sacrifice how something looks for time on a regular basis, but like do your best to find some way to make it special. And I think that if you work a lot where you kind of get into the grind on things, that
Hmm.
was something that really meant a lot to me. And I was like, you know what, that's really true. Like this, I feel so blessed to do this job. I love that. I love cinematography. I love lighting people. I love lighting spaces. Like I love how different light hits different people's faces and their skin tone, and just different skin absorbs light differently. And I love the intricacies of that. And and so like you have an opportunity in every shoot, in every set that you're on, to make it special. And I would say go after that opportunity.
There was an A24 film that came out 2 years ago, I want to say. Horror film, psychological thriller mostly, but the cast was almost 100% black folks, African Americans. And the way that thing was lit was unbelievable. I still haven't seen anything like it. And I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. It had critical acclaim,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it killed in the box office. Um, if I can figure it out, I'll say it or put it in the show
Yeah,
notes. But it was kind of a festival darling
yeah,
kind of movie, um,
yeah.
but really well shot. I just couldn't believe how well it was shot and lit.
That's
Um,
cool. That's cool.
what are the biggest mistakes you see filmmakers or cinematographers make?
Hmm.
And if there's one specific and you know how to avoid it, how would you avoid it? If I can just add that.
I think, I mean, a little thing whether this isn't less about maybe in film, but just in shooting in general,
Mm-hmm.
that I always pick up on right away. And you also like there's tools and there's rules and there's reasons to break them. So it's like not everything is like, oh, this needs to be just like this.
Right.
But in general, there's something called shooting the long side of the lens.
Mm.
And that is like, you see this light, I have this light here. And if I'm facing this way, the light's hitting me flat. So that doesn't look nearly as good as if I'm facing this way. So you would shoot your camera on the shadowed side.
Got
And
it.
so you get this like, it's just like you look better, people look better. And so like if I'm watching something and an interview pops up and it's lit on, like the camera's on the wrong side, like that's something that I would say is it's a very common mistake for people starting out. I've made it plenty of times. And then there's in film, it's a lot harder because there's plenty of scenarios where you can't shoot on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, how do you make it still look good? And that would be, to me, it would be softening up the light big time on that
Got it.
side and making it work. But that's
And
probably that's one thing that a lot of people make the mistake of is shooting on the wrong side. And 180-degree rule, people break that all the time.
okay, so two things out of that. One, for the people just listening, Micah was basically showing profile. He was turning to the left and turning to the right, where you can only see the profile of his face when he was describing shooting the long side of the lens, and shooting on the right side, the correct side, I should say, of the person's profile is really, really important. And if you can't do that, soften up the light quite a bit is what he's saying. Second of all, can you describe to the audience the 180 rule?
Yeah, so the 180 rule. I think picture two people in a conversation. They're facing each other. The
Mm-hmm.
wide shot is a two shot. So you have person one on the left and person two on the right. When you go in for your coverage, imagine there's a circle
Mm-hmm.
and you're cutting that in half and you're always staying on the same side of where the wide shot was shot from.
Okay.
Now you can flip up. There's reasons that you can break that or make it work, but in general, just for simplicity's sake, when you go in for your close up, the person who's on the right side should stay on the right side of frame. The person
Mm-hmm.
who's on the left side should stay on the left side of frame. So if you're shooting in over the shoulder, they're still going to be on the right side. Other person's going to be on the left. And in a scenario like that, it's pretty easy. Where it gets hard is like the hardest way to do this is in a door frame. So someone answers the door, and instead, like you're not shooting shot reverse shot, you're shooting overs. But
Yep.
then, like the where they are, it's like surprisingly hard to make it look right and still shoot them in the correct side. And what happens is like subconsciously, the audience, it just works. Like you're like, oh, they're the right, they're the left, and then you know where everybody is. And
Right.
as soon as it's off, you're like, whoa. And for whatever reason, like TV shows break it all the time. Um, I don't know if they're shooting fast and like sometimes it takes you out of it and sometimes it doesn't. I think it kind of depends on, like, there's definitely reasons you can break it and how to break it, like go into a close up, or you could still keep them on the right side, but you cross that 180 line and you have different foreground, or you went to a different wide shot and then that switches. Like, so there's like lots of reasons and ways to switch it, but in general, for a simple scene, it surprises me how often it gets broken.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about being taken out of the story by the series of shots, and the lay sort of viewer doesn't really know why they got taken out of it, but
Yeah,
when they're out, they're out, and it's just your brain is trying to connect these things in real time and make sense of the world you've created for them, and so
yeah,
that's sort of the magic of shooting. The way you shoot, and using these rules like the 180 rule to create that continuity, so the brain doesn't have to work to try to figure out the world you're creating for them.
yeah,
So really, really cool and great point. I appreciate you going
yeah,
deep on that. It's exactly
yeah.
what we are all about.
My rapid fire answers are not rapid fire.
No, it's like I said, it doesn't have to be. If you could be introduced to one person in film, who would it be and why?
Oh man. I mean, the two people that I love the most in film would be Roger Deakins and Greg Fraser.
Okay.
Um, I would love to meet either of them. Probably Greg Fraser more so at this point, because I've listened to Roger Deakins talk so much on his podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but I also Greg Fraser seems like very like just a fun person to hang out with. Like he's very energetic and passionate and positive. So yeah,
Like you'd
I
want to
got
have a beer with Greg Fraser.
yeah, yeah, I would love that. I mean, I love. I think both those guys. Those are my two favorite cinematographers, and I think both of them do amazing work. But I think what Greg Fraser's doing right now, like he just has, he's just doing little things better than anyone else, and making it cooler, and just doing all kinds of cool stuff. So I would love to just like spend time with him. One thing that was cool that people might be interested in is when I was, I don't know, just like early 20s, I've gone to a couple of different workshops where I've learned a ton, but one of them that I went to was the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, has a
Mhm.
master class, a 5 day master class. And so you go to the clubhouse in LA and you get to, there's like 10 ASC cinematographers there.
Yeah.
And like just getting to spend time with them and like talk to them was really impactful for me. And so I think, if I could hang out there with Greg Fraser one day, that would be pretty cool.
Can you give one or two things Greg's worked on for the audience so they can
Yeah,
go see some
I
of
mean,
his work?
he shot Dune, Dune Two. He prepped the creator, and then another DP shot it and did an awesome job. And then Oren Soffer shot the majority of the creator. And then he shot the Batman. He shot like going back. He shot Lion.
Yeah,
If you
that was a
saw
great
that,
movie. I
which
did.
is
That was
like such a
fantastic.
different movie and beautiful. Like
Yeah.
just unreal. So yeah, he's doing some great work.
I'd written a
What else?
screenplay that ended up being close to the storyline of Lion, so I really like
Oh
the
yeah,
movie a lot. Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Anyway, um, I'll say this about Dune Two. Sorry, people have to stop talking about it, man. Like people have to stop telling me how great it is because then it gets in that place. So I had this razor, this razor, which is in this context is um, like a rule, right?
Okay.
And so the rule is the uh, people enjoy being surprised by something they don't know is great more
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than being told something is great and then seeing it
100%.
or hearing it. And the example I used is when I was in high school, we'd have a talent show, and there was like this guy named Darcy, and Darcy was like the resident artist in our school. He was the guy everybody knew was the bomb.com and happened to be a nice guy as well. So he was like a triple threat guy. And he got up and he sang Stevie Wonder's uh, Ma Sharia Moore, I think, or something like he sang a Stevie Wonder classic, and it was brilliant and it was great. But we already knew he was great,
Yeah.
right? Then his buddy Muweba Mustafa, who by the way is a fine actor here in the southeast region, he's in a lot of stuff here, and friend of mine. We go way back. He gets up and sings. We don't know that about him, and
Yeah.
he sings a song. I can't remember what he's saying, but people were floored
Yeah.
because here's this guy we see in the hallway every day, and it turns out he has this secret superpower, right?
Yeah.
So I think he won the talent show. I can't remember if he won. Wait, but if you're hearing this, let us know if you actually won the talent show. I think he won, and
Yeah.
that developed the razor for me, which is
Yeah.
okay. People were more impressed by the secret talent they didn't know this person had than the
Yeah.
understood greatness of,
Yeah.
right. So it's it's it's
100%.
it, it's
100%.
why it's why on showcases when the 8-year-old gets up there and sings like on America's Got Talent or something, like we're more impressed with that than like the 25-year-old powerhouse singer, right,
Yeah.
or whatever is happening. um
Yeah.
I just don't know why we're like that, but I think we're like that. And what's happening with Dune 2 is everybody keeps telling me it's great, and I'll
Yeah.
be honest, I was just okay on Dune 1. or the first Dune, because I just don't buy Timothy Chalamet. Like when
Hmm.
he's wafy. So I love Timothy Chalamet. I think he's incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. But he can't act his way out of being that skinny. Like when he beat up that black dude at the end, man, I was like, come on now. Come on now. That dude would have broke you in half in real life. I don't buy it. My
Well,
disbelief is no longer
I will
suspended.
say this about Dune 2. I think the
That
acting
dude
in
was
Dune 2
swole.
is phenomenal.
Oh, is it?
It's
Okay.
phenomenal. Yeah. Now, I like Dune 1 better
You
myself.
did.
Uh,
So I
yeah,
haven't heard that. I haven't heard anybody say that.
I know, and I don't think anyone else feels that. But I like that there's a lot more diversity in location in the
Hmm.
first one. I love that we're on, the original planet and it's like rainy and green, and then we come over to like whatever the planet that the desert is, and
Yeah.
like, and we're inside, and they have all the long like rectangular window things with bounce light, and so there's a lot more of that. Like in Dune 2, we're in the desert for like 80% of the movie,
Okay.
and it looks amazing, but we're still in the desert for 80% of the movie.
Okay.
And there is some, there's other cool places, but like the first one has a much more diverse location and like I don't know, style of locations that I really enjoyed.
All right. I'm gonna go watch it. Shout out to
You
my
should definitely
buddy
watch
Tayo that wants me to watch this really bad.
it.
He
Yeah,
he texts
but
me
your
once a week
rule
to
might
find out
have
if I've actually watched it. Like I am gonna watch it. I promise. I will watch it. So I do want to rewatch Dune 1 or the
yeah, I
first
do.
Dune. I want
I
to
wish I
rewatch it before I watch Dune 2. It's not a small commitment. It's a very long movie.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
I just keep thinking like, what would that movie be like if Adam Driver were cast in it instead? Like someone who's like, we would view him as someone
I
who,
think if you watch Dune 2, you'll like Timothy Chalamet even
okay.
better.
And I don't hate Tim.
I
I
mean, and
really like Timothy Chalamet.
Zendaya is phenomenal, like incredible actor. I just feel like all the acting in the second one is incredible.
Okay. I'm all in
Um,
on her as well. And I do think it'd be weird if her and Adam Driver were. So yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense too. So I'm all good with that.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Dune 2 coming up soon. Dune 1 more liked by Micah. Check. Uh okay. What are the first three? Okay, let me put you in this scenario.
yeah.
Again, same scenario, but instead of gear, same scenario
Mm-hmm.
as before, where I'm the cinematographer,
Mm-hmm.
you're the master, right? You're like Mr. Miyagi. I'm the
Yeah,
Karate Kid,
I'm working on it.
and you've already taught me like what to buy. I know to get the Sony FX. Like I know to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I know what lens to get yet, but I know what I'm
Oh,
doing.
yeah,
And so you can drop that in after I say this setup, what lens to
yeah,
get. But now I want to know, like, sort of from a behavioral craft standpoint, what to do. So you got to get me ready to be a cinematographer. What are the first three things you teach me? And then
yeah.
share a lens
So you have
recommendation
an
as well.
experience? Do you have experience yet, or
I've
you just
no
you're
experience. I
you
just went
want maybe?
shopping. All I've done so far is I've gone shopping for the stuff you told me to buy.
Man, I think obviously, obviously, like you can shoot like locations. Like I like to go around Cincinnati or Nashville or wherever and shoot photographs
Hmm.
of those locations. So, I would recommend shooting photographs. I
Okay.
would shoot photographs as much as you possibly can,
Hmm.
and think about what you like and what you don't like about them. And then I would also photograph as many people as possible
Okay.
and notice how different light hits them. Obviously the time of the day to shoot would be morning or evening. You want the sun a little lower on the horizon. If there's a little thin layer of clouds, that's really nice too, but not too much cloud. Then
Hmm.
everything kind of gets flat. So I think you can learn a ton about from photographing on how light works, and just notice things like you're driving in the car in the morning and the sun's coming through in a really unique way and it's really pretty and you're like, oh man, like how could I recreate that on set? Or I wonder what would happen if I photographed that. And photograph it when the light's flat and see how people look. Photograph it when the lights people are backlit. Think about getting a white poster board and bringing a bounce in and using that. I think like just experiment. I think it would be hard to like if you're just gonna go make your first thing and you don't really know. It's just like it's gonna be an experiment, and I would try different things and start figuring out what you like. I'd watch lots of movies as well.
Okay,
Um,
I'm online at B&H Photo. What lens should I go buy for my FX3?
I mean, if you have an FX3, it's full frame. I would get a 50 millimeter.
Hmm.
You could get a 35. Like if I'm shooting photographs, I'll shoot on a 35 almost always. If I'm shooting full frame video, I'm on a 35 a lot and I'm on a 50 a lot.
Got it.
So I think the prime lenses mean that they don't zoom, and most of the stuff that I shoot is on primes. I have several zooms, and for docu style stuff, I'd rather be
Mhm.
on a zoom. But a prime is nice because it forces you to be more intentional with where the camera is. Another good piece of advice, which I maybe should have added in earlier, but is like, and I think I learned this from Deacons, but it's like put the camera where you want the audience to experience the thing from.
Ah,
So like if
yeah.
you want them to be like kind of observant and back, move the camera back away. If you want them to be in the conversation, shoot on a wider lens and be really close. So it's like camera proximity is really important to
Yeah.
how you're setting up your scenes.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and, and sometimes the camera becomes the audience. And I love those
yeah.
shots too, where the whole intent is we're now the camera and we're watching you. We're like above
Hmm.
you, or
Hmm.
we're sort of viewing from our POV. It's
Yeah.
I love those kind of shots as well, and just how you can manipulate the viewer with the camera because you're their eye into the world. Like I
Yeah.
really geek out on that. I think all those
Yeah.
ideas about there's so many different cool ways to take the same subject and make it look and feel so emotionally different depending
Yeah.
on where you place the camera. So let me just
Yeah.
go down the list for the audience again. So first three things Micah Sims is going to teach you before you shoot your first thing. One, go out, shoot some photos. Two,
Yeah.
go out and shoot some people, different skin tones, different types of day, different settings. Go shoot people. And then number three, run a bunch of experiments. Experiment with shots, video, locations, and watch a ton of movies. So those are the first three things you should do once you shop for your 50 millimeter lens, 35 millimeter prime lens, and your
Yeah.
FX3. And all your soft lights and your Fresnel. So once you
Yeah.
have
You
all
might
this
want to have a job to pay for all
no, don't worry. I'm making $25 an
this.
hour at a
This
barista
is
as a
another
barista at Starbucks right now, so it's all good.
thinking about that though too is another great thing that I learned is what you do in your off time says more about you than what you do in your on time. So if you
Interesting.
have a job and that's your on time, but you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be a cinematographer, whatever you want to do, like it's don't bemoan the fact that you are in this job. Like take that off time and make the job and opportunities that you want. And that's going to be how that's the only way it really works is that like you have to put in work and it's not going to just happen. Like
Yeah,
it's just really not. Like you have to use that off time to become the person that you want to be.
that's really well said. And look, to that point, we're all working towards a thing. We all want to make the best thing we can make. We all want to tell a story of our lives through film and through the lens and whatever sort of creative mediums speak to us. And we want to do it at the highest level and get, like we talked about earlier, 1% better every day. But
Yeah.
what comes with that, to your point, is the need for funding, the need for resources. And if you're
Yeah.
going to get those resources at the level in which you might need them to tell the type of story you want to tell, you're going to
Yeah.
hear a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of rejection. This business is very competitive. You can meet some real a-holes. You can meet people who do not have your best intention. at heart. You can meet people who are one way on Monday, and then when they get what they want, they're totally different on Friday. So I guess my question to you, Micah, is have you ever been, in a dark place in this industry? And if so, what tools or methods do you use to get yourself back into that place of happiness that you like to stay
Yeah.
in?
Yeah. I think I think 2020 was a really impactful year for me, because leading up into that, I was working a lot, and I have a family, and kids, and um, there's a lot of pressure to take care of, be a provider, and
Yeah.
so I think like I was working a lot. I got a it's pretty easy to be like, oh, just go from job to job and make money and put do a good job, but not find that special thing that we talked about earlier. And I think 2020 hit, and I couldn't work. There was zero work for at least 3 months. And when something that you love gets taken away, when it comes back, there's a whole new perspective. And I
Yeah.
feel like now I have a new perspective. And that perspective is that every job is an honor to have, and every job deserves your best. And if you're going to say yes to a job, do it to the best of your ability. And so I think that's kind of the thing that has losing that job and losing the ability to work for several months, and like being like, oh, I this is something that's more than just like a job. It's something I just love to do. And then when it came back, I feel like I just had a different perspective, and I feel really thankful to the Lord. I feel like He's blessed my journey so much in giving me opportunities, and also like my I think as a cinematographer, or when you're creating stuff, it's really easy. Like if people don't like it, you like get really down, and
Yeah.
like that is still that's still a challenge. But I feel like finding a lot more of my worth in the Lord. I think that helps keep me positive, and um, not be as quite as concerned about, oh, so and so didn't like this or whatever. And like you talked about earlier, like you can't do stuff for other people. Like you really should be working, like obviously for the director, but like you're making the best stuff you can make.
Yeah.
And it's what people say, but um, yeah, do the best job you can, and you should sleep pretty well at night. So
Oh, and thank you for that, man. I appreciate
yeah,
you sharing that, and I think it's
yeah,
great advice. I mean, be grateful
yeah,
for the work you do get. The fact that we always say that to our team here, which is like, don't forget that you get to do this.
yeah,
And I like to say it on set too. Like, don't forget that you
yeah,
get to make a movie, or we get to do
yeah,
this. Like, it's
yeah,
it's a dream just to be doing this sort of practically as an actual job,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
doubling down on your faith, whether that be, I know for you, you've got a Christian background, but whatever your faith is that keeps you strong and grounded and gives you that foundation underneath, like
yeah,
lean on that.
yeah,
I had a curiosity, just this is almost an aside, but is there,
yeah,
based on your faith, I know you have, your wife and your kids, and you guys all sort of have that background in
yeah,
Christianity. Is there something you won't shoot, that you refuse to shoot? And I'm not talking about, will you shoot snuff films and pornography? Of course,
yeah,
that's off the table. I'm saying
yeah.
within the realm of uh, narrative storytelling, do you have a line where you're like, I won't shoot that even though the story needs it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that line had to be drawn early on, because once you're face to face with the money or the opportunity, it's a lot harder to say no. But yeah, I'll run scripts by my wife. Um,
Shout out to Elizabeth.
yeah, shout out to Elizabeth.
Hmm.
And just be like, hey, would you be comfortable with this? Or, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this. You think, should we say no to this or whatever? And sexuality and nudity on screen, like there's more and more of that in shows. So I definitely read read the scripts pretty intentionally, and I've
Yeah.
had to say no to some things. Um, just because I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm not comfortable watching it with my wife. Like, I'm not going to shoot it. And so that's kind of it's a hard line. But for the most part, it hasn't come up a whole lot. But that's kind of where I stand, and I'm trying to stay there. And I made that decision a long time ago too. So I think kind of staying with your convictions on that is a good thing. And I really do think that with the streamers and getting away from like TV and theaters, like the the line for what is an R-rated movie now is way worse than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of these R-rated movies are really X-rated movies.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that it's artistic. I don't think it brings a story forward, and I don't think it's helpful for most people, or especially marriages.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame. I think that a lot of this content could be cut out, and you'd still have maybe even a better movie, or
Yeah.
show or
Or
whatever.
show. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that and sort of having the courage to stand on your beliefs on the record. I really, respect that. I was going to show my youngest daughter Stand By Me the other day, and then I was shocked to see that it was rated R. So I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
hold on. We have to watch this again to see, like, my daughter's almost 15. She can kind of,
Yeah.
it's like, seems like a good age to watch Stand By Me. I feel like I watched it before I was 15. And so what
Yeah.
were my parents doing? But anyway, but then you come to find out, okay, to your point about how the ratings were, like,
Hmm.
okay, they have curse words, like
Hmm.
some like, um, combination word curse words or thing, like
Yeah.
some compound curse words, but that got them R rating back then, and now
Right.
that feels like that would be PG-13 now,
Yeah.
and not R rated, and so I think you're absolutely right. And where I will just give you my stance on it, I
Yeah.
think when a nudity or sex scene is required to tell the story, it then it comes down to how are you going to shoot it,
Right.
and if you
There's
shoot it,
tasteful ways to do
right,
it, and
yes,
then there's non-tasteful ways to do it.
right, and so if you can do it tastefully so that it makes sense, I think that works. Like, um there was that Richard Gere movie from back in the day. I mean, how do you avoid the lovemaking sex scenes in that movie when the whole movie is about a tryst that goes wrong, and the perils of um of affairs?
Hmm.
You can't tell that story without showing bedroom scenes. You just can't. You can't
Hmm.
skip that,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
you put earlier. And so I think then it becomes, how do you shoot it? And to that movie's credit, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of this movie. I think it might have been Unfaithful or something like that. Um, they did shoot it in a very, very adult and tasteful way. And I mean adult in the sense of it was a mature looking shot and lighting, and it wasn't
Hmm.
there to surprise you or shock you
Hmm.
um, with sort of, how the sex is happening or how the lovemaking is sort of going down. So very, very good stuff. Man, I this has been a blast. I have to tell you, I had a really great time getting educated from you, and um,
Okay.
I will leave you with this. I'm curious, what does success look like to Micah Sims? What does it mean for you to make it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think success is kind of evolving. I think for a long time, I wanted, my goal was to have, ASC after my name.
Okay.
Um, and I think that is, I would still obviously love that, but I think the chances of that are going down quickly. But I think I feel definitely earlier in my career, I felt like this need to like do bigger and bigger work, and to grow like where I was working and how I was working and who I was working with. And I don't feel that anymore. Like, I get a lot of contentment from my family.
Mhm.
Um, we just adopted a kiddo, so we have a fourth kiddo now.
Wow.
And I just like, I love being with them. I learned so much from them, and I love being a dad. And so like I love cinematography. I love working, and I love being a dad and making that all work together. And I think for really movies are not something that can really do that right now. Unless it was like a shorter run or my family could be with me or something. So, hopefully in the future I'll get to shoot more movies, as my kids get older. But I just am content. I'm super content with the people I get to work with. I love, people like Maki, like Ryan, another buddy, Isaac Stambo, and Rudy, and David Perry. There's so many I'm not even naming. There's just so many good guys out there, um, and a girl named Ashley Mello that's just doing great work. And like these people I just love working with them. I love the opportunities I get, and I feel like sometimes we get the opportunity to make some really high level stuff. And I think my idea of what success is has, it's being is doing the best I can at the opportunities that I have with cinematography. It's being the best dad I can, and blending those two things together. And that's what success is for me. And right now I feel super thankful that it's working out really well. So yeah, very thankful.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I love that. And shout out
Yeah.
to David Perry, friend of the podcast,
Yeah.
former guest, and shout out to adoption. I am the product of adoption. I'm not adopted myself,
Cool.
but my father was. And I would
Cool.
literally not be sitting here talking to you today because my father was adopted from Germany. And so I just would not even be here without adoption. So I love adoption. I'm glad you're doing that. And we're going to get those, we're going to get that acronym. We're gonna make that happen. You're gonna get that ASC.
Okay.
You certainly deserve it. In the meantime, though, can you tell everybody watching and listening where they can find you on social media, where they can find you on the internet, see some of your
Yeah.
work, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I have two accounts. My kind of work account is just my name, Micah Sims. And then I have a photo account that's just called Micah's Camera. And that's mostly just photos of places I've been or my kids or other people. Um, and then I have a website that's just micahsims.com. I will say I'm terrible about updating everything. So there's not going to be tons of stuff on there. But I mean, I really also have a heart to like, teach people and educate people and train people. So if you have questions or there's things that you want to know about or something, definitely drop me a message and I'll do my best to like respond and help out. And,
Can they email
maybe
you or should they DM you? How should they
email.
get in touch with you?
Yeah, email's great. Micahsims at gmail.com. And yeah, I'm here. Like I've had so many people help me get me to this place. Just
Mhm.
believe in me, give me opportunities. Like I think of like another version of you. Like I was 25, 26 years old. And when we shot the first part, I was younger than that. And I
Yeah.
just like, I didn't Maki believed in me and Maki gave me that opportunity, and Ryan and you.
Yep.
I'm sure there was also like you're like, who's this guy? Like I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's way more experienced people, and I was given that opportunity, and I'm so thankful for that. So thank you, and thanks to those other guys.
No, my pleasure.
But yeah, I
It
would love
seems
to help other
it
people.
seems to have worked out, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so all good. We'll do some more. And to your point about being bad about updating accounts, this is a little bit inside baseball, but we we found this old Flickr account that you had,
Oh
and
gosh.
then the research was like, there's like a comment in the research. He hasn't posted in 7 years. Clearly, he's done with Flickr.
Yeah.
but
Sure.
but it's
I
still,
didn't even know I had a Flickr account.
you do, and it's still up there. And there's a lot of cool stuff on your Flickr page, like a lot of old school Micah comments added there in
Oh, wow.
photography. So I don't know
One thing I
if
did
anybody wants
do,
to go search up Flickr.
please don't. So one thing I did do that a long time ago, which was super helpful, is just take a photo a day and post it
Hmm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that will help people grow, um, and just be like intentional with, making stuff.
Oh man, I think that's so good because it's like, yeah, you're intentional about it. You're actually experimenting. You're doing stuff, but then you're also facing the gauntlet of of sort of
Yeah.
public scrutiny, and you're
Yeah.
facing the fear yourself. My dad, when I was younger, did this experiment on me in that same similar way, a little bit different. I remember I was terrified I couldn't like find matching socks. This is a true story. It's so stupid, but I was like, I'm not going to school. F it. I'm not going to school. My socks don't match. And I just like can't afford to be bullied today. Like I can't afford to like be like the subject of everybody's ire. And he, of course, as dads do, made me go, and I'm wearing the mismatched socks. He goes, I bet you that no one is going to notice it. You think you're the center of the universe, and I'm here to tell you that you're not.
Yeah.
And sure enough, not one person saw that my socks didn't match all day. And to this day, he uses these sort of techniques to calm me down. Like I'll start to get sort of existentially angsty sometimes, and about just like time running out. And he'll be like, just remember, you're one person out of 8 billion on a rock that's hurling around the sun in one galaxy of billions. And it just puts it all some people hate that. I've told people that before. They go, oh, thanks for making me feel meaningless, Chris. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point
Yeah.
is, don't over dramatize this. You're on the journey. So many before you and so many after you will take, and we don't even have any of it figured out. The universe appears to be expanding. This is like a story that just came out like a week ago, but it's not expanding equally, and it's baffling
Mm.
people. It's expanding faster in some areas than other areas of
Wow.
the universe, which isn't supposed to jive with physics.
Yeah.
So we don't know anything. We just don't know anything. From the moment you were born, you are told that you have a conscious and a self-conscious, and nobody can find it on an X-ray. Nobody can find it on an MRI. So just go out, be intentional, upload a photo a day, and do your thing, and everything will be all right. That being said, let's talk about where you can find the Make It podcast. Obviously, if you're listening or watching this, you already know where to find it. But if you want to support some more, do leave a review. They really, really do help. And of course, you can leave those reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can subscribe on our YouTube page just by searching for the Make It podcast. What you may not know is we are uploading full episodes to X, which is formerly Twitter. So you can find that at _ Make It Podcast. We are also uploading full episodes to Facebook, and you can find that on just by searching for the Make It Podcast on Facebook. And we are uploading full episodes to that platform as well. We will just keep expanding and keep doing our thing. So just keep an eye on that. If you want to further support us outside of the podcast, one really great way to do it is to subscribe to our bi-weekly newsletter, Indie Insights. Indie Insights is kind of amazing because it's a passion project for me and the team. Nick and I and the team, I should say, we all work on it together to bring you the most esoteric, sort of not conventional stuff you'll find in film, insider stuff like discount codes and tools, resources, software from that come from behind the wall, if you will, of filmmaking and of the industry. And by the way, it costs nothing. So just put your email in there, and we're not going to spam you or do any of that crazy stuff. We're just going to send you this goodness every 2 weeks. So Indie Insights, subscribe. You can do that at bonsai.film. So bonsai.film.com. So bonsai.film/subscribe, and you'll get the next newsletter on Friday. Guaranteed that you will love it. New thing is on bonsai.film, our store is open. So you can go and shop for cool, Make It apparel, bonsai apparel. Very, very good stuff there. We curated this. We spent 2 years curating the right partners and the right apparel so that it wasn't just a t-shirt or a hoodie that gets stuffed in a drawer that you never see again. One of the cooler items in the store is the Make It signature poster. So the signature poster, I just want to talk about it for one quick second. How many times as filmmakers do you go to the wrap party And then at the wrap party, the producers give you a t-shirt, and then you wear the t-shirt, and then it gets really raggedy and you never wear it again, or you wear it to mow the lawn. Instead, producers buy a signature poster, have everybody on crew and cast sign it. Then you take it home and you frame it, and it's priceless. It lives forever. It's priceless. It will be cherished, and you never know what someone's tomorrow will look like. So these are very affordable. I think there's something like 15 or 20 bucks on the site. Signature poster, go get it. Last but not least, check out our cool hoodies, t-shirts, and I think we have a phone case there at Cotton Bureau. So cottonbureau.com. Cool thing about our Cotton Bureau partnership is that they reject 90% of all submitted designs. And so the fact that we got in and we're partners with them, we're super proud of that. The t-shirts are buttery soft. You will love them. And let us know if there's a city in there you want us to add. Currently, we have Nashville, Atlanta, New York, LA. So make it Nashville, make it Atlanta, make it New York, make it LA. So please support in that way as well. Everything that you can do in that regard, newsletter, apparel, whatever, it's all very, very helpful. So we appreciate you for that. That was a mouthful. What a diatribe. Micah, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. This has been just an absolute blast. And thanks for sharing a piece of your life with me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate being on the podcast, and you do a really good job. So thank you.
Thank you. That means the world to me coming from you. And as Nick would always say on our Indie Talks, be better, be creative, be engaged. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll all get together on this very podcast very soon. Micah, talk again.
Awesome. See you later.
All right, brother. Be good. Peace.